die. I could hold you in my arms. I could hold you forever, and I could hold you in my arms. Oh, I could hold you forever. When you kissed my lips with my mouth so full of questions, my worried mind was quiet. Place your hands on my face, close my eyes, say that love is a poor man's food, no prophesy. I could hold you in my arms. I could hold you forever, and I could hold you in my arms. Oh, I could hold you forever. Now we see how it is. This fist begets this spear. Weapons of war, symptoms of madness. Don't let your eyes refuse to see. Don't let your ears refuse to hear. You ain't never gonna shake this sense of sadness. I could hold you in my arms. I could hold on forever, and I could hold you in my arms. Oh, I Seems he cut a man down in a Tennessee town. He's just licking his wounds for a spell. But it won't take long for the boys to catch on, and soon he'll be running like hell. Run, hey, hoes, run. This ain't no time for that ball and chain. Run, hey, hoes, run. Climb on that pony and ride like you ain't never done. Well, their love, it was long, it was gentle and strong. For a while she forgot his sin. And she kissed him for love. She kissed him for love. She kissed him one time for a kiss. Well, they came in without a warning in the hours before morning. They come a blasting through the windows and the walls. When the smoke it did clear, somebody cried out, he ain't here. Killed ourselves a woman, that's all. Run, hey, hoes, run. This ain't no time for that ball and chain. Run, hey, hoes, run. Climb on that pony and ride like you ain't never done. Ride like you ain't never done. Oh, mama, don't walk away. I'm a goddamn soul loser. I ain't too proud to say that I'm still thinking about you. I'm so lonesome without you. I can't get you out my mind. Oh, mama, don't leave me. And my soul is shut down so tight, just like a stone cold. Ain't it clear when I'm near you? I'm just dying to hear you calling my name one more time. Oh, son, don't pay no mind to my watering eyes. try to ignore. Oh, there's blood on the floor. It's just this heart on my sleeve that's bleeding. Oh, mama, don't walk. You leave me here reeling from the words so hard and faint, saying the love that we had was just selfish and sad. Yes, but to see her now with him is just making me mad. Oh, so kiss him again, just to prove to me that you care. I will stand here and burn my skin. Yes, I will stand here and burn my skin. Who am I to tell her? Who am I to play God? Who am I to think I can go it alone? Something tells me, girl, this is bringing you down. Something tells me.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Soul Food Books today. Today, I'm extremely excited. About a year ago, we started a series called the Leap Series, and the Leap Series was in this effort to bring, as a community, we have this crazy, brilliant collective experience with wisdom and people who've walked a path before us, and all of this incredible depth of knowledge that sometimes doesn't necessarily really get a platform for it. So we created the Leap Series to bring in people who have been on that path before, to bring their experience and their wisdom to the stage. So this month we have been really holding the heart of leadership. And I don't know about you, but I have some nervousness talking about leadership. Maybe it's because culturally I'm a female. Maybe it's because I like to say the word awesome. I'm not really sure, but on occasion it makes my stomach kind of do flips. So when we started to bring this up and I started talking to the speakers that are today, what I realized was there are these amazing people with this wisdom in these different aspects of leadership that I get a little nervous about. And so to have them all together on the stage to bring forth what they've learned and to be able to give those skills, I did do a dance, it was awesome. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce our first speaker. And when I met this speaker, I was kind of floored, actually, on a few different levels. One, she was incredibly prepared, which I was not when I first met her. So I got this opportunity to watch somebody completely hold this community and have been doing it long enough that it was this incredible way of being. And so I've gotten an opportunity to watch her do a few other things. And the speaker who I'm going to bring up, her name is Judith Laxer, and she is the head of, well, she's founded Gaia's Temple, and it's this incredible place that's all about honoring the Earth Mother. And so I could actually geek out a little bit longer about Judith, but what I'd actually like to do is bring up Judith and let her tell you a little bit more about herself. Please put your hands together.
Hi. Thank you for that beautiful intro. That was lovely. So I'm going to start by leading us in song. I can't help myself. Y'all know this song, so I'll just start and you join in. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a keep it going. Row, row, row your boat. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. 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 I like to start with a song like that because it reminds us that we are dreaming this life. And if you've ever done any lucid dreaming, where you not necessarily control, but kind of direct the way reality is occurring, it just reminds us that that doesn't only happen when we're sleeping, and that happens, or can happen, when we are wide awake. So I like to start that song. Plus, I think music gets all the energy going, and I'm a little energy junkie, so there you have it. So Sarah talked a little bit about Gaia's Temple. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my work there, and I did found Gaia's Temple in September of 2000, so this September will be 12 years old, which is an amazing thing to me. It's like, phew, boy, did that go by fast, and I don't know how I managed not to age one day in 12 years, but there you have it. And I founded it because I realized that everywhere on Sunday morning, people were gathering in houses of worship with people of a like mind, and there was no place for earth-based spirituality, goddess worshippers, pagan folks, pagan means earth-based, to gather together. There were lots of autonomous circles and groups getting together, but they were hard to find and connect. And because a lot of people who follow this path of spirituality are not necessarily followers or joiners or like to become members of things, you know, it's kind of hard to connect. And then there were a whole bunch of people who were feeling like, you know, I wish I had a place to you know, just have a container for this or some sort of formal something or other. And so I decided I was going to throw a goddess worship service. What the heck? And so it was kind of a fluke, and I did it, and 12 people showed at that first service, and I have been offering them on the second Sunday of every month ever since. There's been a few incarnations along the way. We now meet at the Sunset Hill Community Center in Ballard on the second Sunday still. We have between 75 and 100 people who gather with us each month. It's open to everybody, men, women, children. We have a beautiful youth program now, and gorgeous music and musicians each time. The themes of the services are all based on nature, and it's a beautiful thing that's going on there. So Gaia's Temple is the thing that called me, or rather, my ministerial work called me, and from there I founded a ministry. So the reason why I'm going to this whole long story is because that's where I feel like my leadership really was the thing that called me. And I think that a calling is kind of a hokey word, but it's really the truth. Because when you feel called to something, you cannot deny that something is knocking, and that is a call to leadership. So now, because I'm very tangential, I'm going to check my notes to make sure that I don't go off, which I tend to do. Yeah, so Sarah said, you know, so the subject's going to be navigating the heart of leadership. And stay out. No. You okay? Oh, we didn't. All right, everything's good. Nobody cut themselves. That's all that matters. So navigating the heart of leadership is, you know, it's like leadership is a huge topic. And I said, well, if I'm going on first, are there any parameters? Because, you know, you could just go in a million different directions. Like, no. You come from your own thing. Just, you know, speak from your heart. It's like, okay, heart. Navigating the heart of leadership. And so that started to clue me into what it is that I want to talk about, because true leadership really does come from the heart. And so what this means to me, or what came up for me, is that, you know, we are in the process of, if we haven't already, entered into the Aquarian age. We've gone from the Piscean age, where we look to another as the master and the teacher. You tell me what to do, how to be spiritual. You're my go-between between me and spirit. That's the kind of Piscean age. And now we've entered into the Aquarian age, which is about each of us stepping up into our own sense of power. And that doesn't mean that there aren't teachers or leaders or guides, but it does mean that we take information or learn what we learn and then check it against our own selves before we move forward. Does this really work for me? Instead of just swallowing things hook, line, and sinker. Oh, you told me this, so I'm going to believe you and I'm going to live that way. Essentially, the difference between the Piscean age and the Aquarian age, I think, is that it's going from head to heart. And that our leadership now is going from head to heart. So this doesn't mean that we're tossing aside all reason and logic, because it's not black or white one way or another. We're not going from this extreme to that extreme, although sometimes the pendulum does kind of have to swing back and forth like this until it finally finds its balance. But it's moving from head to heart. So that means that what we think and how things have always gone, and the intellect, which is absent of the compassion and relatedness in the heart, has been the way that we've been leading. And now it's kind of filtering down so that it's coming from the heart first. What speaks to my heart? What matters to me? And then I'll temper it with logic and reason and say, does that make sense? And how can we do this? But then it becomes using the intellect really more as a strategy, or how to strategize what is kind of organic in the heart. So this shift from head to heart is a huge shift. And we've heard, you know, everything from the bumper stickers, shifts happen, and, you know, shift, shift, shift. Everything's shifting, especially now in 2012. It's all shifting, right? This solstice is going to be, oh, the world's going to, you know. But the shift has been occurring kind of slowly, and it's slowly getting to the point where it's going from our head down into our heart. Now, I personally believe that this is happening as balance is occurring on our planet between male and female energy. And I want to, before I go any more further in that direction, I want to make sure that you understand I'm not talking about men and women. I'm talking about male and female energy, which, although often gets assigned to gender, is really, really not about gender. It is about the difference in energy, and the distinction I make is that feminine energy is magnetic. It draws to it what it wants, what it needs. It's a magnetism, right? Masculine energy is electric and radiant. It comes from a source like the sun and radiates outward. So one is electric and one is magnetic. And we know there's an electromagnetic energy field that goes on our planet. One is not better, one is not worse, one is not more powerful, one is not weaker. They're just different. When they are balanced, we've got a beautiful flow that's going on. And we all know that that has not been balanced on this planet for close to anywhere from 6 to 10,000 years. 6 to 10,000 years in our written history, like a good long time. You know, it's been a man's world. It's been a male-dominated operating, a way of operating that's been just completely masculine, which is forward-moving. It is protective and radiant and glorious and heroic and many beautiful things, but it's also been up here. It's been logical and linear. And what we feel doesn't necessarily mean very much. Or that's like, well, those are the emotions, that kind of weakens us, so we'll just toss that aside and soldier on. And that is the essential shift that's taking place now, that we're looking at how we feel, what the compassion is all about, and how we can relate. And that relatedness and compassion is I think, the kernel of the difference that's going on here. Which is why I founded Gaia's Temple, which is a goddess worship service. Now, this is very inclusive. Goddess worship is inclusive of male, so it's divine masculine and divine feminine. It's not just for women only. It's not just about the goddess. It's an inclusiveness, right? The Great Mother gives birth to both men and women, boys and girls. So it's very inclusive, as opposed to a patriarchal mindset that's been very exclusive, very hierarchical. So this, I think, is the huge shift that's going on. And that's what happens when we move down into our heart. So I'm going to check this again. Aquarian age from head to heart. And yeah, All right. So, when we were thinking about, well, leadership, like I said, you can go in a million and one different directions, and it didn't really feel like, I didn't really feel called to talk about what people should be in leadership for, but to really take a look at what kind of leaders or how to step up into a place of leadership. And particularly for women, because we haven't been socialized to be leaders. In the last like 40, 50 years, we're kind of like peeking up over the wall a little bit, but we're not very practiced at it. And so I think that's an important thing to keep in mind about how to become a leader. And since this mindset, or heart set, I guess, is going from head to heart, then the first question one must ask oneself if they're stepping up into leadership is, what matters to me? What matters to me? Not what do I think I'm going to be successful at, not what do I think is going to make me money and secure this and that and the other, not what do I think at all, but what do I feel and what matters to me? Because when you find what matters to you and your heart is engaged in it, you're going to remain inspired and you're going to be motivated. Whereas if it becomes this, intellectual construct, well, how many people have I spoken to have like gone to college and gotten the degree so they have something to fall back on? If you have something to fall back on, guess where you're going to be? You're going to fall back on it. But if you find something that matters to you and that's your goal in the future and you keep your eye on that goal and your heart going toward it, that is what makes a change, and that's what makes a leader. Something matters to them enough to step up to be on the front line. So finding what matters is a very important part, and I think that's the first part in finding finding the leader within yourself. There used to be a time when sticking with the group, sticking with the tribe, staying within the confines of how things go meant our survival. And if we, which is why excommunication was like the worst thing that could happen, or being ousted from the tribe, or, putting out on a mountaintop and everybody's leaving you to your own devices, it meant your sure death. I think on a cellular level, we still kind of have that wiring, and we still think, oh my God, if I don't have my tribe, if I don't have my community, if I step away from the norm or do something that's unexpected, it's going to mean my annihilation. And so that fear comes up, and that's why we don't step forward. Now, there was a time when that was true, but this is not that time. This is a different time in our evolution now, and our elevation, little Freudian slip there. It's time in our elevation now, where we need to step away from the normal, usual confines. And what happens, what's so extraordinary about that, is that when we do step forward into something that matters to us, even though it's not the normal, usual, regular, expected, we're going to find other people who have the same sensibilities. So it might not be the tribe you were raised in. It most likely will not be your family of origin. How many here can feel like, why did I choose that? Did I really choose that womb to come through? What was I thinking? They don't get me. They don't know me. Oh my goodness, So we have a little trouble with the family of origin part. But we are going to find chosen family. We're going to find other people who form our tribe and our community when we step forward. Because when I think of myself like, well, I really need this, I really want this, and this matters to me, I can't be the only one on the planet that this happens for. And so when I step into that realm of what really matters to me, I'm going to find others of a like mind. I'm going to find the tribe. I'm going to find the community. So that's another thing that happens with regard to heart and stepping up into leadership. Next, and so what happens from there is the whole grassroots thing starts to happen, which is beautiful. And I love to talk about grassroots, because when you think about 1 square foot of lawn, there are millions, literally millions, of grassroots in there, right? And we often think we're alone. I'm the only one who thinks this way, feels this way. I'm the only one that this matters to. But grassroots is really what goes on. And so when we tune into that, and we will find others of a like mind. And so that's kind of how the grassroots things happen. And then, you just look at what took an herbalism class many moons ago now. It was this 9-month thing, and one of the first questions they ask is, what's the largest type of plant material on the planet? And we're like, well, trees, forests, ferns, moss, mushrooms, lawn. we've planted more lawn than we've planted anything else, which is kind of sad when you think about it. But when you think about the metaphor of grassroots, it's like, oh, that means there are enough of us, and if enough of us are doing what it is that really matters to us, we are going to turn the tides. And the tide is turning anyway. The tide is turning. What are we going to do to turn the tide in the direction that we believe it needs to be going in? Because if we just shut up and sit down, it's going to continue going the way it's going, and I don't think there's anyone in this room who likes how that's happening. So, okay, so then a few other things about being a leader that I wanted to talk about. The next one is courage. Courage. What puts the ape in apricot? Courage. So, I'm a bit of a wordy nerd, and I like to break down words all the time. So the word courage, the core, C-O-U-R, or C-O-R in Latin, means heart. And age means time. So courage is heart time. What happens when you sit in your heart for a while and really find out what goes on there? When you really get there, you find that you have courage. That's where you find your courage. You're going to find it in your heart. If it's something that you think you're supposed to do, but it's not really authentic, that goes down in a kind of body wisdom, it's not going to qualm your fears. So that's one thing about courage. And then the other thing is, I remember there was this movie a long time ago, a George Clooney movie, where they were stealing gold bars from Kuwait. I don't remember the name of the movie, but Three Kings. Very good. Thank you. Taylor, thank you very much. And so they're, before they're about to do this big caper, they're sitting around, they're talking about first this has to happen, and they're going over the plan. And there's like this one younger man in this group, and he was like, all right, are there any questions or anything you want to bring up? And he says, yeah, I'm really scared, and I don't know if I can do this, and I just want to know, how can I find my courage, essentially? And Clooney says to him, courage is what you find after you take the action. When you leap off, and you find you have wings, then you're like, oh my goodness, next time I'm going to have this thing down because I've already done it, I've had some experience, and that's how I'm going to find my courage. If we sit around waiting to feel courageous before we take an action, we're just going to sit around waiting. It's like, it's never the right time. You're never going to feel like, oh, now I feel completely fearless, so let me at 'em. You might, but it's rare. Usually it's like, right? Take a deep breath, ground myself, remember what my motivation is, get in the heart, and go. And then after that, that's how you find your courage. So that's just something I think that's important as a leader to keep in mind, that you're not always going to feel fearless in the actions that you take as you take them. And sometimes saying, oh, this really frightens me. That's telling me something. There's something important to me here, and I should follow through on that. So that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, courage. And then the other thing is courage and confidence, they kind of go hand in hand. And that's another word that I love, because the con in confidence means with, and the fidence part is fidele. So confidele means with truth. And we are confident when we are standing in our truth. When we're trying to convince ourselves of something, or we're telling a little lie to make ourselves look better, or our egos are at the fore, it's not really true, and it's not really authentic. And so it's difficult to step forward confidently if we're not in our truth. We remember that whole thing about if we never lie, then we don't have to worry about getting caught, because it's always the truth, And that's the same sort of thing here. If we really find what is true for ourselves, then we can move forward confidently. And confidence is, I think, hand in hand with courage. So that's another thing as far as leadership is concerned. And then there are a few, and so from there comes our ability to trust and to trust ourselves. So trusting in general is often difficult to do because, life is difficult, and we've had lots of bad experiences, and now that's evidence, and, a lot of reasons why we just want to protect ourselves and shut ourselves down, right? And we can keep telling ourselves that story and find ourselves, completely boxed in, and that is not a good foundation for leadership. So finding a way to trust and to trust yourself is a very important part. And trust is also, that word trust is where the word true comes from. And so it comes back to that authenticity. In this new age, being different from everyone else or from the family or the usual is, it's becoming more prevalent, but it still is new to us. So So that's really all I have to say about that. We just have to be present in the moment, and it's going to be different than it's been. But we have to remember that being different than how it's been is really what's important now, because how it's been has not been very good, or it was good for its period of time, and now we find ourselves here where things are very precarious on the earth, and we have to make a shift. So sometimes we have to trust that the actions we're going to take, even though we're not practiced at them, are the ones that are absolutely necessary. And if we stay true to what really matters to us, then that trust is going to propel us forward. So trust and confidence and courage, they all go hand in hand. And often that will land in me like, you're crazy. They're going to think you're out of your mind. No one's going to show up to hear what you have to say because you are, on the woo-woo choo-choo. You're the weirdo. You're out there. You're, all that sort of stuff. And yet, every time I have stepped up and absolutely told my authentic truth, even though I was worried about how it was going to land, doors have opened. People have shown up. Magic has happened. So now it's easier to do that because I've kind of proven to myself and shown myself that that's what happens when you do that. So speaking of authenticity, I was at the Women of Wisdom conference recently. I led a workshop there, and I also took some workshops, and I took Jean Houston's workshop. I don't know if you know Jean Houston. She is just amazing. This woman is a cultural anthropologist, and she is the most, if there was a guru for me, hers would be the feet that I would sit at. She's just extraordinary. And anyway, so I took her workshop, and one of the things that she was talking about was the last election between Hillary and Obama, right? And why Obama got the nomination instead of Hillary. So I don't really want to get all political about who's right, who's wrong, or whatever, but what she said about it really made sense to me, which is this. What Hillary tried to do was prove that she could be a good old boy, and she could be up there with the men, so that she would get the vote. And so she didn't really stay true to who she was as a woman and the female voice, which really is about compassion and relatedness and about women stepping up into leadership because we're going to be leading from the hearts and we're not going to stick with the same old system and we're, probably will not want to send our sons and daughters off to war and, all that sort of stuff. But instead, she was doing shots back in some bar to prove that she was like a good old boy. Whereas Obama led the most feminine campaign. Yes, we can do it together. Hand up to the downtrodden, and sure enough, he got in. So this is just to illustrate the authenticity. I stand up there every month, and I talk about things that really matter to me and that I believe matter to the earth, and I say some really kind of out there things that, I would not say at the Thanksgiving table with my right-wing Republican brother-in-law, But it is authentic for me. And what I find is after doing that over and over and over, there are up to 100 people every month who are gathering to hear this stuff, which, anyway, so that's not aren't I wonderful? It's just talking about how difficult it can be, but how important and how right on it is to find that authentic voice that comes from the heart and speaking it over and over and over again. You're going to find people fall away, but you're also going to find the people that find you. That's your true tribe. And that's really crucial for our work. So the next thing that I want to bring up is faith and keeping the faith. And without proselytizing or tell you what faith to have or how to do it. The one thing that I do know, regardless of what your spiritual path is or your spiritual sensibilities, is that some sort of a devotional practice is crucial. Because that's also the difference between what I think and what I believe. And I can think about what I believe, right? But having that sense of faith is an embodied knowing experience. Whereas what I think about it is what goes up here, and that is often involved with the ego or just the intellect. I believe this, but a devotional practice will be something that helps me enact my faith, and it will strengthen my faith. So even if it's just as simple as you create a home altar, you go to your altar every morning or every night or whatever in a consistent ritualized way. You light a candle, you gaze at the flame, and while you're gazing at the flame, you take 3 deep conscious breaths, right? That's all you're thinking about while you're doing this. Now I'm inhaling. Now I'm exhaling. right? You see how slow you can make those breaths, right? Maybe on the last exhale, you blow out the candle, you say your amen, your aho, your ashe, your blessed be, whatever it is, and then you move on. It's a simple little thing, but it is a devotional practice. If that's something that you do every day, it's like putting another brick in the foundation, and before you know it, you have something to stand on. Then, when you are feeling a little frightened or a little uncertain or a little unsure of what's going on, all you have to do is look at a candle flame, and next thing you know, you're breathing deep and you're remembering, oh yeah, that's right. That's why it's called a devotional practice, because it's something that's put in over and over and over again. So I think devotional practice is really important when it comes to leadership, because we as leaders also need that kind of strong core to hold us. When you're on the front line, everything that comes right at you. The guy behind you gets less of it. And so you really need something to hold you in your center and in your core. So I highly recommend some sort of devotional practice. And I know in this day and age, for a lot of people, that's things that they create for themselves rather than following, what anyone else tells you to do. So I use the breathing and the candle as an example. First, because it's really simple, and you can do it at home. You don't have to wait to gather with other people or what have you. But I think a devotional practice is really good to help you keep the faith. And goodness knows we need to keep the faith in these times, that's for sure. The next thing about leadership is about patience, which is like my least favorite subject, because I'm, hello, my name is Judith and I'm a control freak. And my name is Judith and I want it now, If I've been thinking about it for a long time, that's long enough, And I recognize that, dense reality is a little slower, right? Our thoughts are fast, our feelings are fast, and then going into the material plane is going to take a little time until that happens. So cultivating patience is also a really good thing, and a great way to do that, especially when you start to get impatient, which is like a land that I live in often, is to raise your sights and look longer and keep what that big picture is in mind. The timeline is most likely it's going to take longer for you to see what you want to lead into manifestation to actually manifest. It probably will take longer than you'd like it to. But if you keep your eye on the goal and keep looking at the big picture, it helps you to see the progress that you've made. Like, so for example, with regard to the divine feminine, right? We know from artifacts and history and all kinds of research that's happened in the last several decades that there was a time when the Great Mother was worshipped on this planet. That was about at least 10,000, and we don't know back to 100,000 years ago, but there was a period of time when that occurred. And then for the last 6 to 10,000 years ago, we know that great bait and switch took place, and here we are now. Now, with the resurgence of the divine feminine, which I think began in the 60s with the, Summer of Love and just breaking down all of those confines about how we're supposed to be, and then the 70s with the Me generation and the women's liberation, and then into the 80s came the goddess, so the spiritual aspect of the resurgence of the feminine happened, and then through the 90s and the 2000s, it's been really growing. But when you look at 6,000 years to the last 50 or 60, we've come a huge leap. Talk about a leap series. Wow. I mean, we've come a long way in that short period of time. But looking at that in the big picture, it's a drop in the bucket. So when you keep your eye on that big picture, you're like, okay, we're still at the beginning. I'm going to reserve our energy, and we're going to keep on going. That big picture, that big goal out there, that's going to help me keep rising to what it is that I want, instead of saying, it didn't happen. Guy's Temple, like I said, is going to be 12 years old in September. From the very beginning, it started in my office. There were 12 people in a circle in my office. Right now, we're renting out a big community center. But the truth is that a lot of the things we want to do and expand to, we can't do until we have our own space. If we had a mortgage and that was our one payment each month, and we wouldn't be nickeled and dimed renting this space and that space. And there's also about a sense of space. Like, people know, they come to SoulFoods. There's going to be, it's like an anchor. There's a place to go. And even though we've been going to Sunset Hill for about 6 years now, still, it's not our place. We have to gather everything and walk with it when we leave. And, it's just not what we want. It's not what I want. I want my own building. I want my own building. I have church envy. I want my own building. You know, I just look at all these marquees everywhere, and I'm like, oh, right? And the truth is that we're just not in a position to purchase or lease one now. So what I have to do is keep my mind and my heart on the big picture, which is for 12 years, there have been people gathering every month to worship the divine feminine. That is part of this wave. So I don't get to have what I want right now, which is my own building. But in the big picture, it's great work. So the patience as a leader is a very important piece also, because otherwise you just say, that's it, I'm out of here, and you drop and you run. And that doesn't help in manifestation either. So, you know, there's way more to go in this timeline, and sometimes that can kind of make you a little complacent. It's like, well, you know, it's 10,000 years compared to 40 years, you know, we're nowhere. So I think we'll sit down and not worry about it too much. But the truth of it is, in that big picture timeline and what's going on now, this really is the 11th hour. So we might not get what we want tomorrow, but why sit down and wait any longer? This is the time for us to step up as leaders. Absolutely. And then the last couple of things that I want to talk about are some of the hazards of leadership, because I've experienced those too. And I think that's really important for us to keep in mind. And the first hazard of leadership, I talked a little bit before about, you know, when you're on the front line, when you choose to be in leadership, you're stepping up to the front line. So what that's going to mean is that you're highly visible. It means that whatever comes at you is going to hit you first, as well as it meaning that you are the face of whatever it is that you're leading, right? When you are on the front lines, what I mean by whatever comes at you is going to hit you first often comes in the form of projection. So this is starting to get into some kind of, you know, psycho-spiritual stuff, but what the heck. Right, we're there, right? There are people who are going to look at you, and I've experienced this myself. They both love me for who I am and what I'm doing, and they hate me for who I am and what I'm doing. I'm like, wow, how can that complete extreme, you know, exist at the same time? But sure enough, there it is. So the people are like, oh, Judith, what you're doing is great. I love how you do it. You're awesome, la, 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 la. And then there are people like, and they do not like me. I still haven't quite figured that out because I'm really a very nice person. So I'm not quite sure why that happens. But, and I have to be careful too, because, you know, any feedback that comes to me that's negative, it's very easy for me to say, oh, well, they're just projecting their stuff on me, you know, instead of, well, I should really take a look at this and see, is there some truth in this? And I do make a practice of doing that. But when you're on the front line, you're going to be projected upon. If someone has envy, or they are jealous, or they look at you and they want to be doing what you're doing, you're going to feel their daggers. You know, they might be smiling at you, but you're going to feel it on an energetic level. You might say something quite innocently, like, you know, the patriarchy is not working, and the next thing you know, you are labeled a man-hater, which is not at all what the patriarchy is not working means. So people are going to twist your words, and they're going to make you out to be all kinds of things, and this is where toughening your skin is really crucial. And unfortunately, toughening your skin seems to only happen when you're wounded. It's like you have to get the wounds first, go, oh my God, that was vulnerable place, I better put an extra something on there. But that's just good to keep in mind too, because you're going to be the face of something, and you're going to be out front, so you're going to be projected upon. That's one of the hazards. Another is character assassination. So it's one thing to say, you know, for people to say that you're a man-hater when you're really not. It's another for them to start to say, well, doesn't she think she's all that? And I happen to know her from 1982. And in 1982, she was la-da-da-da-da-da-da. And they start to tear you down, to tear your power away. And this is another reason why faith and all of the grounding and the things that you need to do to keep yourself really authentic is important. And to keep in mind also that, yeah, 1982, I was a different woman. But I'm here and I'm now. And each of us and all of us have made mistakes somewhere along the way. And that's part of the growing, and that's part of being human. And that's just kind of how it goes. But you can expect character assassination. It's too bad, and it would be wonderful if we all get to the point where we don't feel like we need to tear the other guy down in order to feel powerful for ourselves, but I think we're still, as a society, in adolescence in many ways, and part of the maturing process is to recognize that if that occurs, then that is occurring from someone who does feel powerless, because otherwise, why would they have to tear you down? And to find that place of compassion, not pity, like, but compassion. Oh, yeah, I remember a time when I looked at somebody who had something I wanted and felt like, how come I don't have it? So you have some compassion, it humanizes everything. And then the relatedness. When have I done that in the past? And it just kind of neutralizes all the energy. If you respond in kind, you're going to drag yourself back down, and then exactly what they're trying to do, which is take your power away, is exactly what's going to happen. That's, like the Dalai Lama said, it's, we have to be what we want to see in the world. We have to model what that's like. So if someone's tearing you down, and you say, oh, yeah, well, your mama wears army boots, too, and you come back in kind, it just, everything degrades. Not good leadership. That's another reason why I think Obama did so well, because he didn't go down to that, he didn't let them drag him down. He just didn't. He just kept high moral ground, and I think we recognized that and said, Yahoo. The other thing is that there are people who feel very powerful by rebelling, and they rebel even against things that they really like, if they're not the ones to implement it. So I've had, sat with people in conversation and talked about something that mattered to me, or what I was stepping up toward, or what I wanted to do, and they were in full agreement, and that when I actually stepped up and started to do that, they completely, I was like, whoa, I thought, wasn't that you I was having that conversation with? Like, what happened? So there's kind of a rebellion that comes up also, which I think is also kind of a developmental phase that's kind of adolescent. I'm just going to rebel because I can, and that's what makes me feel powerful. So in my experience, these are the things that have happened as I've emerged as a leader, and so that's why I'm bringing them up, just so that when it happens for you, as you step up to leader, you can say, all right, that's what this is. I'm not going to let it steal my power. It's like, oh yeah, there's the rebellion, there's the rejection, that one must be envious, or this one thought this of me, or they're going to, try to tear me apart because that's going to make them feel better. And it's too bad it has to be that way, but don't rain on my parade. And just don't let them stop you. And then the last little piece that I want to talk about is what happens when we make mistakes, because we're going to make mistakes. And to me, recognizing and owning. Now, you might, obviously, we don't recognize a mistake necessarily right in the moment when we make it, right? When we do something, we're doing it because we think it's the best thing to do. Later, we go, oh, my God, what was I thinking? Or, oops, that was the wrong way to say that. Or, we make a mistake. Whenever it is that you recognize you've made a mistake, own it. Own it, own it, own it. It is absolute liberation to say, wow, I made such a mistake. I was completely out of integrity. I want to own my mistake. I want to make amends for it. I want to clear the air so I can move forward. That's the perfect kind of modeling and leadership that we need. We've seen it over and over where leaders make mistakes and they, no, but I didn't inhale. That sort of stuff. It's like, who are you talking to? You think we're come on. Come on. Whereas if someone is just honest about the mistake that they've made, we find our respect for them. And I would prefer that our leaders show their humanity, because that also helps with compassion and relatedness. And when I know that someone has been through some hard times and has made some mistakes, and they've raised themselves up, and now they're in a beautiful place of leadership, my admiration for them just soars. I'm like, wow, how did you do that? I want to know how you overcame that addiction, how you transcended the dysfunction of your family of origin, how, fill in the blank. I want to know how you got to that place. And that's what I find admirable in a leader. But that only happens when the leader keeps it real. So if you make a mistake, own your mistake and watch how that liberates you. It's like, oh my goodness, I have wings. Wow, all I had to do was sincerely apologize. And the other thing is, like I said, so the projections that come at you, it's very easy to say, oh, that's just the other person's stuff. But no matter what it is that comes at you, Byron Katie says, nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. No matter what it is that happens. Look at that. They said I was wearing too much lipstick. Am I wearing too much lipstick? Just check it out. You might decide, you know what, lipstick's my key mark, and I have 20 of them. Yes, it's true. If you look in my medicine cabinet, and I like my lipstick, and lipstick's going to be it for me. But I might look in the mirror and go, my God, I look like a clown. They get to be right. I need to ease up on the lipstick. That's a ridiculous analogy. But if you take into account what comes at you, instead of taking it personally, it's very, very helpful. And sometimes you'll hear things that you can't see for yourself because you're in it, right? And others on the outside can see something for you. So that's another thing about making a mistake. Don't wear too much lipstick. And then another thing with regard to a mistake is, and I guess I'm saying this specifically to women, but I don't think it's only to women. I think it's to men also, but there are a lot of women who are stepping up into leadership positions now for the first time. So what happens there is that we're not practiced at it, which means we're going to step on toes, and we're going to make some mistakes. And this comes under the heading of we have to model what we want to see. You know, we have to be what we want to see in the world. If we see a sister up there and she's making a mistake, we have to forgive her, we have to encourage her, we have to thank her for bravely making her mistake in front of all of us. We have to try to calm her from feeling humiliated and remind her of her humility. Yeah, and just remember what that's like. I've stepped on a lot of toes along the way, and it wasn't like I said, ooh, there's a toe in my way, I think I'll step on it. I was just so focused on where I was going that I didn't realize what was under my feet. One that I heard, ow, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you know, instead of just continuing on. So we're going to make mistakes, but we have to cultivate a sense of tolerance. That doesn't mean we have to put up with things we don't want, and we do need to call things that are inauthentic, right, in our leaders and in ourselves as leaders. But mistakes will be made. It's as simple as that. Mistakes will be made. And tolerance for mistakes makes a really good leader. So I'm just going to check on my little piece of paper here and see if there's anything else I didn't say that I wanted to say. And then I'll open it up to any questions or anything that you might want to toss in. You know, I think I kind of covered pretty much what I thought about how to do. I did about 45 minutes, I think. Was it 42 minutes? But who's counting? Were there any questions about anything or any comments about anything that was said? Or thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Judith, I would like to ask something about mistakes.
Yes.
You used the word a few times.
Yes.
In terms of yourself having made them.
Oh, yes.
And others experiencing them as mistakes.
Yes.
Making them, but I wonder what that is, though, in terms of when we get up there and speak from our heart,
Mm-hmm.
which means it's our intuition.
Yes.
Which means sometimes when we're present with it, we actually don't know what we're saying. It's actually being asked for
Yeah.
by the people we're speaking to.
Yes.
So what may look like a mistake is actually serving a higher purpose
Yes.
for someone, like the wound that will strengthen them
Yes.
already without us even knowing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean by everything happens for you instead of to you. And I think those sometimes there's like that tough love stuff that occurs, which doesn't always feel good in the moment. That's not what I mean by mistake. What I mean by mistake is there have been times when I've just, you know, because clearly you can see I like to talk, right? So blah, 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 blah. And I'll just go off and I'll realize that I just said something that was a little disparaging to someone. I didn't mean that, but that's kind of how it came out. That to me is a mistake. If I had another take, I wouldn't say it like that. I wouldn't say it like that if I had another opportunity. And usually that happens when my ego is out here and my authenticity is over here. I'm trying to look good. I'm trying to make it be like I got the answers instead of like, you know what, I'm just doing the best I can, just like the rest of us. And, you know, I just happen to be wearing velvet.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. Yeah. So, what, did you have anything else? Between 2 and 4 in the morning. You know, it's so funny because Paula said this in all my free time. Paula said the same thing to me because Paula used to come to Gaia's Temple and then was like, hey, where you been? She's like, oh, it's all the way over on the other side. And yet it's so interesting too because there are a lot of, well, I don't know about a lot of, but there's a growing number of goddess temples in this country now, you know, that are springing up here and there. I think we're the only one that's open to both men and women, though. Most of them that I know of are for women only. And that's a beautiful thing, too, because I know women need women-only space, just like men need men-only space also. But from my perspective, we're not going to go very far if we don't bring our men along with them. So, you know, to me, it's like everybody, the Great Mother's inclusive, and I want to model that. But anyway, I bring this whole thing up because there are people who are all over this country who can't find anything like this. And we have people who come to Gaia's Temple from, like, Marysville and Stanwood, and you know, and then there's people who just like won't cross the bridge, you know, or like one woman who's up, well, I moved to Capitol Hill, it's so far from Capitol Hill to Ballard. I'm like, are you kidding me? There are people who would like walk miles for a camel, you know, it's just the strangest thing. So it's a perspective. But you know, our whole thing about Gaia's Temple really is sustainability, and there's some information over there if you want to read more about it. I'll be happy to talk with you about it also. And we're at the point now where we're sustaining what we're doing, and I would like very much to be able to get into our own place, as I mentioned. And I'm also open to the fact that that might not really be what is in our destiny. It might just be that we rent and we gather where we gather. If it does come to that and expansion would happen, that we would meet in other places, I'm open to how that happens, but we're not there right now. But the thing is that it's only once a month, so it's not like every Sunday, you know, and once a month to go across the bridge is not that bad of a day. But thank you for that, I appreciate it. So I just want to thank you, Sarah and Soul Food Books, for giving me the opportunity to talk as I do, and thanks so much.
Set up. And then just to remind everybody, there's pamphlets over, like straight ahead of me, right by the pole, that talks about Gaia's Temple and Judith's work, and then some other work from some of our other speakers. So stretch your legs, take a deep breath, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.